Hi, I'm Paula Benson, founder and editor of Film and Furniture. We identify and furnish you with fascinating facts about the furniture and decor you spot in your favourite movies, with details on exactly where to find these items for your own home. In our world, the furniture is the star, and our features and videos with film production designers and set decorators are infinitely inspiring for your own home decor projects. And it's all served up with a large helping of design knowledge and provenance, including details about the design, why these items were chosen for the film set, and how these objects often tell us more about the characters than the script. We go deep and we go nerdy to reveal the hidden narrative. Great. Thank you for speaking about Maestro. Absolutely wonderful film. Was it fun to work on?
It was a joy. It was hard and it was long and it was incredibly challenging. But I have to say, it was a joy almost every day.
So the film takes a span of time from the 1940s through to the 1980s. And obviously, you could quite easily fall into cliches with those time periods by picking pieces of furniture and designing rooms that represent that time. But what you've done with Maestro is really clever, I think, because we have a sense of time and a sense of place without it necessarily being grounded in a very specific style of furniture or interior design. Could you talk us through your process for that?
Well, that's a very good observation. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that we wanted to move lyrically from time period to time period without stamping the year on it. We wanted to move with the relationship of Lenny and Felicia. So what we do is we transition from one period in their relationship to another, and it happens to be jumping in time. So, for example, when we introduce color for the first time, we've moved into um, a period where they're at the Dakota, and it was in the 70s. So we wanted to be very specific about the palette and that we wanted to feel the wealth and the social status that they had arrived at, and that their children were starting to grow and that the full family was there. But it was about the moment in their relationship being sort of sad and heavy and tragic in a way. And the set needed to sort of reflect that. And I think you really hit it on the head when you said the feeling of the period is correct, but it doesn't tell you specifically what it is because they always had layers of patina and history in their residences. So there was never like, let's do this up in this style of this decade or this moment. So through the costumes with Mark Bridges and Rena Deangelo, the set decorator, we knew the emotional core of that set and we knew the period of it and we knew the details that we wanted to move into that. We also understood Felicia and her desires for decorating by going through the previous apartments and quite often we would layer things from other past homes. We would move them from one place to another. I think the Osborne is really interesting because we cut right from the marriage proposal at Tanglewood into this. Suddenly they have a daughter. They're living in the Osborne apartment. They are in, they also have gained a certain amount of wealth um, and fame and notoriety because they're suddenly in the public life of having a TV camera, a TV crew in their home. And I think understanding, like when we designed that set, we understood what that scene was about in its emotional core. So you learn about the period, and then you just, after all the homework you do and the research, you kind of just throw it away and you go, okay, now what's the feeling of this? And how do we convey where they are in their life? And then it's supported by their dialogue and their scene together and how she's keeping his schedule and they're in the public eye, and he's sort of questioning certain things, and then he goes out in the hallway, gets the airplane that says "I love you" from his daughter in the note, and goes out to Central Park and has that sort of that tragic, sad encounter with David Oppenheimer. So I think for the design, it was really key to not just design a set for a certain period, but to design what was happening in that set and where they were in their life, and to take that into account. We wanted it to show a lot of where they were, but not go, this is what year it is.
Sure. And
That's you.
you had access to the real home, and you were able
Yes.
to see that in reality, which must have been afforded you an incredible dialogue and incredible vocabulary.
Exactly right. We got a lot of the taste that Felicia had, and how they like to live comfortably. And she did hire decorators at a certain point, mostly for the Park Avenue apartment. By going to the Connecticut house and seeing her paintings on the wall, and how the details of the family, the games on the shelves, and the all the her interest in wicker furniture, and how she liked to go to flea markets, and how she liked to paint, but she came from uh, a sort of European taste sensibility and grew up in South America. So she was extremely cultured. They both were. Um, but they like to entertain and have a good time. And just to see that in their country house and their weekend house where they raise their family informed every other element in their domestic life for us. The Osborne and even the Carnegie Hall apartment at the beginning that he lives in, his music studio. We wanted to be as authentic and as intimate as we could be with these details. And then by doing that, we were furnishing their houses with things that they would have really had. And I think that that was the key. And then we could just put it together in a way where it felt right to us.
And it does. And I guess, going back to the first part of the film, so you're shooting in black and white, and then there's this incredible transition, which serves many purposes, I think, into throwing you into a new world, a new feeling, and obviously all that color. So going back to the first scenes with the Carnegie apartment, which was, I assume, above in the garret of the Carnegie Hall.
They had music studios and um, living studios for musicians and artists on the top floor of Carnegie Hall with those big skylights.
Yeah. So it has a sort of a slight feeling of a very elaborate sort of artist garret because of those sloping ceilings and the windows. I mean, he really did live there, Bernstein.
He really did live there, and he had a piano, and he played there, and he composed there, and he slept there, and we altered the plan and the height of the sleeping loft to fit the sequence where we wanted him to have a lot of energy going down the stairs and out into the hallway. And we built that hallway and connected it to Carnegie Hall at the door of the box.
So you immediately get that feeling of a young person, someone who's sort of burgeoning, exploring their craft, and even like the wooden stairs, it's not too elaborate. So you get the feeling they haven't quite made it yet. And all these sort of signifiers help us establish. And then obviously he gets his big break and gets to conduct in the Carnegie Hall. And that's a wonderful sort of shift. And then we're taken into gradually slightly more elaborate and beautiful and sophisticated environment. So you get that feeling of success and of movement as you go. So just coming back to the Osborne apartment as well. So I thought it was really interesting. This is where they have that interview, and there's this beautiful, big, sweeping 1950s sofa. And I love the fact it was so big because it sort of almost presented them as now they're well known and they're stars, but it wasn't too chic. And I would love to know how you designed that room with that sofa.
Well, there was a really good reference video of the Edward L. Murrow interview in their Osborne apartment. We changed the floor plan and the layout of the apartment, we wanted the scale that they had arrived at. You know, we're jumping from the proposal in Tanglewood into the Osborne apartment, and they now have a daughter and they're married and they are presenting themselves to the public in this space. The couch was a curved sectional, not so unlike the one that we found, but we wanted it to feel the right socioeconomic kind of period thing for them. You got it exactly right. We wanted it to feel as though they were presenting themselves. Her in that dress, the striped fabric on the sofa. It was when the set decorator Rena and I were discussing the sofa, which was really particular because Bradley said, let's try to do a curved thing like in the actual apartment. And Rena had this one from a rental agency in the back of her mind immediately. And we looked at many, many, many options, but we ended up with the one that she instinctively felt was the right one.
Are we in color at that point, or is that black and white?
No, it's still black and white.
Still black and white, but I imagine that sofa being sort of an orangey browny color or something.
That's right. You probably know. And it really works well for black and white. We shot on black and white film. So we did camera tests with the film stock and saw how different colors reacted to it. And we could test fabrics and test contrasting elements because some of the colors went to black, some of the colors, all the midtones kind of went together. So we knew which colors to stay away from and which ones would read in a certain way. So we tried to have the kind of contrast and texture that we desired for that scene. And that was one of the fabrics that we tested.
So you're thinking on many different dimensions. You're thinking of size, of shape, of texture, of color, of depth, and contrast. So there's a lot to take on board on, I'm guessing, with some of those scenes.
Which is why I think if you get a strong foundation of the period and of what the scene is about, then you can just sort of what an actor would do, just throw it all away and then use your sixth sense in putting it together and having it with the right coffee table and the right chairs. And then when you have a great dialogue between the set decorator and the designer, you can really just kind of paint the frame.
And given that it's not a linear narrative, and the fact that we're jumping backwards and forwards, that sense of time and place is ever more important in order to orientate us where we are in time and where we are in mood as well. So moving on to the actual family home. So did you shoot in Fairfield House, or were you taking your references?
We actually shot there. And we shot there in 3 different periods of time. So the house was architecturally pretty untouched, except for like gutters, storm windows, technology on the inside. So it was a lot of curating and refreshing. The architecture, the wallpaper was the same as it was when they lived there. It was a great reference and a great thing to say, well, what could be better than the real thing here? So it was a matter of carefully curating, carefully working the furnishings for the period, refreshing the rugs, refreshing the fabrics on the furniture. But a lot of the things on the walls, we just sort of moved around to become more cinematic and to tell the story better. It was an incredible reference or a resource just to have all that stuff that was in the house as a starting point. And then we could change it for whichever period we were in.
So things like the details of that fabulous flower wallpaper, that was all there already?
The floral wallpaper was Felicia's doing. The blue gingham dress that she's wearing at the top of the stairs for that scene was taken from Felicia's closet. She actually wore that dress many times when she was in the country.
So that must have been very emotional for the family.
It was incredibly. They were so on board They never got in our way. They let us do what we needed to do. They were very respectful, but they were an incredible resource when we needed to find out details of like, was this that there and was that there? And the one big change that we made was his studio where he writes with that piano was sort of a guest house cottage by the barns on the other side of the pool. And that had been turned into like a kitchen and a living room for sort of a guest house. And we rebuilt his and reconstructed his studio the way it was for that scene. Otherwise, there was no architectural changes done to anything.
I noticed some really unusual details, and I wondered, you might not, well, you may or may not remember them, but
Oh, I think I will.
there was some unusual sort of Scandinavian 50s bird vase was in there, and I thought,
Oh, well,
indication of their travels, or
yes, I think their travels, but also Felicia's desire for creative outlets. You know, that's why she painted so much. And a lot of her paintings were from their vacations or when she was up in Fairfield. She loved to go to flea markets and she loved shopping and adding eclectic mixes into things. And that was one of the valuable things that we learned when we were up there, the sort of humorous side of her collections and how random it was at times. But you could tell in her paintings and what she painted, because she painted a lot of still lifes, how much she loved nature and how much she loved the gardens. And it was not formal designs. It was always very bucolic and loose and sophisticated and appreciative of a very nuanced uh, garden flower taste kind of thing.
and obviously all these sets that we're talking about, each and every one has a piano. Did you become somewhat of a piano expert in this?
Yes. We actually had a piano schedule so
Mm.
that we would know of all the pianos what they actually had in each place and what size it was, what year it was. Interestingly, the piano in the living room at Fairfield, where he's playing at the beginning and the end of the movie,
Mhm.
is the actual piano that his piano teacher gave him
Oh,
when he
wow.
was a student, and he kept all that time. He normally had Baldwins. He had a harpsichord in the Dakota apartment along with the baby grand. But in uh, the Fairfield house, that was a Steinway.
Of course. So yeah, you mentioned the Dakota apartment there. So the key scene there, I think, is where the argument ensues, and that room is incredible. We've got the arched windows and Leonard sitting on that cream silk
Which
sofa.
is at the foot of the bed. It's actually their bedroom with a fireplace, but we only saw it from that one angle. So
Really quite stunning. And then also this unusual scene with the Snoopy outside the window as well.
that was the same room, the bedroom. Bradley decided to do that all in one wide shot, that scene, and not cut away to coverage because he felt he was going to get the performances that he really wanted between them. The only thing he specified to me was let's do two windows. So there's a space between the windows so that it feels a little bit like her side, his side. Understanding the emotional core of the scene as being the Dakota is a very heavy architectural building with dark moldings and thick, heavy draperies and a lot of woodwork. And we decided on a very dark blue grass cloth on the walls, partly because we wanted that room to feel masculine and sort of sad in a way, or like a little bit dark with the and also feeling insulated from the outside world,
Mhm.
and insulated from the parade that was going on. So those were emotional elements that we wanted to include in the design of that room. We designed it 360, and then Bradley came on the day of shooting and said, what do you think if we were to frame this here? Let's look at this. The camera's going to sit for a long time. And that's when it gets dangerous because people look at the details. So together, Bradley, who has an amazing eye, and Rena and I all sat and tweaked that frame and changed the painting. Um, uh, we moved the bar in the middle. The bar was on the other side of the room because he wanted to have action to get a drink when he walked in the room with his sunglasses on and make her even madder. And the couch at the foot of the bed with the she originally was in the chair with the ottoman, and then she decided she needed to be in a more powerful position, so she sat in the window. But we quite often would do this with scenes because Bradley loved to get into the details like that. But that particular scene, we all worked on together for like an hour before we started shooting.
I love that scene. It's pregnant with atmosphere, it really is. And then obviously it's a key part in their relationship as well.
Yeah.
So obviously co-written, directed and starring Bradley Cooper. Was the script very descriptive of some of these scenes that you designed?
Yes, yes and no. I mean, I think that I Bradley made him, I don't know how he did it, but he made himself so available at all times to every department. And he knew what everybody was doing. He had his eyes on everything.
Mhm.
He, the interaction that I had with him early on in prep, where I had a lot of prep time, was invaluable to understand what he was doing with this movie and where the transitions were going and how to design for the way he wanted to shoot the scenes and what the transitions were going to be and what the emotional core of each scene was. So, so I would say the information came gradually during prep about each bit. And when presenting him with options, it was always very clear. Let's lean in on this feeling and let's not do that there. And so I would say the script didn't change much. And a lot of like that fight scene in the bedroom, I think that scene was written exactly like that, but it didn't describe any sort of design details in it. We talked about that later when he talked about the layout of the room, and we talked, we would sketch it out together.
And then another room which I loved, and I think this is set around the early 1970s, is the hotel room, Watergate hotel room.
Oh, I love that room too. Yeah.
Yeah, where we have these beautiful late 60s, early 70s colors with the lemon yellow and this baby blue, just gorgeous.
Yeah, that was again, the architecture and the shape of the room was based on the Watergate Hotel where they stayed when they were down in Washington doing the Kennedy Center thing. And we wanted to have the period not thrown at you, but kind of nuanced through the color of yellow and blue. That was a starting point for us. And then just having those giant lamps. You want to signal it as a hotel room in a way, which you can do with the layout of the bed and flanking with the lamps and the artwork and the open bathroom. And then you can supplement it with the luggage racks and with the dry cleaning and the things that signal, oh, they're down there and it's a hotel room, because you do want to convey that it's a hotel room. There was a beautiful sitting area that you don't see with an incredible flowered couch, which was yellow and blue that we sort of picked the colors out of to inform the rest of the room.
Yeah, we have some stills of that. It's wonderful. And
Oh,
the
good.
bathroom to die for.
Yeah, it is, right? Yeah.
And then we have a completely different kind of set. There's obviously, we have lots of performance, we have lots of conducting, we have theatres, and then we have this incredible scene in Ely Cathedral in
Uh,
England. So did you come to Ely in England, or
yeah,
was
we took over the small, beautiful village of Ely that has this, one of the largest Gothic cathedrals in Europe. And the town is filled with brick and stone two-story houses and a little main street and greens and lawns. And we basically came to town and like brought our production there, and they were so welcoming and generous to us, which we were really lucky to do, because it was important for us to bookend the performance spaces with real places that were recreations of things that happened. And we felt that the Carnegie Hall scene was so important because of it being his introduction, and Ely as being kind of the scale of what he was doing in Europe at a certain point in his career. And also the Mahler piece being one where he really shows how he throws his body into the conducting. And so we wanted to record that live with the London Symphony Orchestra. We wanted it to be period correct, right down to the sheet music and the chairs and the music stands and the microphones and the pews in the church. And it was wonderful to be there. It was actually a lot of work to coordinate the needs of the orchestra, especially a current modern day orchestra, and the choir, the risers of the choir, and how we arrange everybody. We had the reference pictures for what it was like originally. It was all in the central octagon of the church. And it was one of the largest octagons, which is why it was easier to do it there also. But we needed to, remove technology that wasn't correct, and again, periodize it. But it was so important for us to get every detail correct. And all you really do is see people in black and white sitting in chairs, because you don't see the chairs in the end. But it was important for everybody that was there. It's one of those things where you do it for other reasons than for it to be seen on screen and called out. I think the best art direction is one that's felt and not seen in a way.
Absolutely. So you did film in England. So does this, I've only seen the film once at the moment, but I swear there were some scenes in the Savoy Hotel.
No, there
Okay.
were going to be.
Okay.
We had scouted it. We had planned to shoot there. It was after Ely, there was a scene where they drove back and they were staying at the Savoy because that's where Bernstein always stayed. It was more about them sort of getting back together in their relationship. And at a certain point during the shooting, Bradley just felt like, no, you know what? We don't need that scene. But I like that you felt we did. We did.
I think it was when Felicia was having, felt like high tea, afternoon tea with her.
Oh, that, yes, because the Savoy is very much like a bird cage, like that conservatory room. That was at the Plaza Hotel in New York,
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
in the tea room.
Okay, that solves that conundrum for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was after it was after one of her theater performances. She was meeting Shirley Bernstein and her daughter Jamie for tea. And that happens right before the Ely scene. So I can see why you might put them together. Yeah.
Okay, so I have one final question for you, Kevin, and that is, if you could take one piece of furniture or decor home from the set for your own, what would
Uh,
it be?
it would probably be the hanging lamp in the Dakota study that has the fringe on it that we reproduced from the original one that was in the research, because it's so identifiable and so iconic, and it was like right in the middle of the room, and it was something that to me signified that we were in their apartment.
It was wonderful, sort of a slightly Edwardian feel with the fringes and with the palms as well. Felt a little, touch of that period. So yeah, congratulations again. I think it's a major feat to actually have that sort of toing and froing of time. And obviously they had so many apartments and so many houses. At some stage I was sort of trying to keep up in my head, but that was with my film and furniture head on, trying to work out where they were. But
Sure.
in many places it's much more about atmosphere, and I think that's created so well. So well done.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'm going to look into film and furniture now.
Go and have a look. Thank
Thank you.
you so much,
Bye-bye.
Kevin.